Hey, what's up, man? We're gonna talk about this video about the chosen one, Jose Mourinho. Man, honestly, guys, like this guy, I used to hate this guy. I'm a Barcelona guy, and we used to go against Real Madrid. His tactics and you know, it was just like I don't know, bro. Like I hated him. They used to he used to say like he used to park the bus or something, like pretty much putting like a lot of players against the goal. That way no one could score. If you know football, you know these terms. But I just hated him. But you know what? Like the more I got to see this guy, like I remember when he got fired from Chelsea the second time. Cause like his first time around, I wasn't really like okay. So I used to like I love soccer and I was always into soccer my whole life. But then like for a little bit of time in my life, maybe like 5 years, I didn't really watch it that much because of I used to be kind of religious and I thought like watching sports and like participating in sports, it's like anti God and I don't know. Honestly I had weird beliefs, man. Like uh, I still kind of believe that, but anyhow, it has nothing to do with nothing. But a little bit of time in my life, I didn't watch that much soccer, and so I didn't really follow him his first time around in Chelsea. But I remember when he got fired a second time from Chelsea. I remember like I feel sorry for him because I think the previous season he had won the Premier League, and then the following season, halfway through the season, like he got fired, and I just thought that was unfair. And then like I just thought like, damn, they should have gave him a chance. And I just don't understand how I know the fans get upset and they want to fire people and stuff, but I don't get that. Like it must really be hard to be a coach, honestly. Um, uh, it must be super hard. You like, well, actually, I know it's hard, but I don't know. I don't think I could put up with it. But then again, for the millions of dollars that these guys are getting paid, maybe I could put up with it. Anyhow, and I remember when he went to Man U, I so wanted for him to do good there. Like I was like, dude, I just hope this guy does good. That way he can show everybody out. Like I wasn't even a fan of his, but when he went there, like I was like, man, I just hope he shows like the Chelsea, how they're stupid for firing him or something. And then he actually did things with Man U that no one had done since like Sir Alex Ferguson. Like I think they won the Europa League, yeah, and like he got him a championship which they hadn't gotten in forever. And then like a little bit after that, or I think the next season he got fired, and like I think he was not playing for like a season or two, or I think it was like one season, and then the Spurs, the Tottenham Spurs, they hired this guy, and I remember when he was there, like when he got hired, I was so happy. I was like, man, I hope he does a good job with them. And he's just a freaking legend, this guy, man. Like one day, man, I hope I can meet this guy, but I don't just want to like meet him and like, oh, hi, Mr. Mourinho, hi. No, I want to be his friend, bro. Like this guy, like he's he's a freaking champ, man. He's a like he's a guy that like I feel like a guy that will tell you the truth, that a type of person that you need in your life, like I remember when he was there and he talked to Dele Alli and he told him like, "Hey, Dele Alli, if you don't like, because like I guess Dele Alli would practice like his practices were like lazy and like I remember watching the special on Amazon, with the one where they follow the season and stuff, or like the preseason, and he was there. And he would tell him like, dude, this guy, I don't know why he practices like that. Like Mourinho was always complaining about him, like come on, guy, you gotta actually like practice hard. And then like he was just like, oh, and then one day he just like called him to the office and sat him down and said, hey, buddy, like you might look back one time and be like, hey, I should have tried harder, but like I don't know. You probably should, because you're really good, but I don't know what's been happening with you lately. And sure enough, man, the new coaches came in and like who was it that came in? Uh, dude, I can't think of this guy. The Spurs new coach came in and he didn't want him, and then Everton. He went to Everton, and then Everton, he didn't even do anything there. And then now, I don't even know what team he's like in Turkey somewhere. But this guy is a freaking legend. Let's just watch this video because I love this guy, man. Mourinho. And like I said, I want to Mourinho. If you ever watch this video, I want to meet you. And not only do I want to meet you, like, I know it's a hard fetch, but I actually want to be your friend, bro. I want you to tell me off when I'm fucking off or whatever, man. But I really do want to be your friend, bro. Let's watch this video.
It's been 18 years since a club outside the top 5 leagues has won the Champions League. Ever since then, football has been so monopolized that every year, only like 4 teams actually stand a chance. Even when Porto won it in 2004, the stars had to align in every possible way in order to make the miracle happen. Just picture this: after an historic 5 league titles in a row, in 2002 Porto were about to miss out on the title for the 3rd consecutive time, which, in a club that obviously demanded success, meant chaos. The average attendance went down to 10,000 and the coach was sacked, but instead of going all out for some big name coach, Porto signed the guy who had been coaching União de Leiria. When it comes to the Portuguese league, clubs don't get much smaller than that. So, why him? Well, that guy was José Mourinho, and to anyone who had met him, even back then, it was no ordinary man. His life had been a roller coaster ever since he was a kid, but his focus was always on one thing: football. His dad was a football manager and ex-player, and when José was 9 on Christmas Day, he was sacked. It ruined the holidays and it changed José. From there on out, he would help his dad any way he could. By the time he was 12, he was the one preparing his dad's scouting reports. Still, don't believe the myth that Mourinho never played football. For 2 years, he played at Belenenses and Rio Ave while his father was manager, once even scoring a hat-trick in the Portuguese Cup. It was only after all of that that they both decided Mourinho was better off on the sidelines, so he began studying sports science and later football methodologies.
Going ball, this guy, man.
And attending any football courses he could. At 24, he played his last ever amateur football match, moved on to a youth coach position at Vitória de Setúbal, got promoted all the way onto second coach, and then his life changed forever. He was hired by Sporting CP to be Bobby Robson's translator. After only a couple of chats, Robson was mind-blown. He could see Mourinho was one of the brightest football minds he ever came across. Quickly, he moved him to second coach, and over the next 7 years, he was completely indispensable by Robson, who took him alongside him to Porto and Barcelona, then lending his services to Van Gaal as Robson moved to a sporting director position. All these years, Mourinho learned from them.
Legend, bro, legend.
To be in the spotlight. The storm was brewing. In 2000, he got to take over Benfica all by himself. It was a dream job, but it went massively wrong. By the time he joined, the market had closed, the club was in shambles, and before he even sat down on the bench in his first match, the team was already losing. After just 11 matches, elections had taken place and a new president chose to replace him with another manager, even though Mourinho had just beaten rivals Sporting 3-0 in the Lisbon derby. Now feeling a bit lost, Mourinho waited for the start of the next season and took over at União de Leiria. Despite the downgrade, this decision set him up for success. Managing a team with virtually no budget, Mourinho became hyper-aware of all the hidden talents scattered along the league's smallest teams, and midway through the season he had dragged Leiria all the way to 4th place in the league, 1 point above FC Porto. Which
legend, bro.
To the start of the video. Once in Porto, Mourinho did not hold back. With his iconic stoic stance, he told everyone they had their worst team in over 2 generations, but made sure to calm things down, telling the fans, "I am sure next year we'll be champions." From there on out, Mourinho
legend, bro.
In the club. Even though his tactics weren't the most innovative, his impact was astonishing anywhere else. Training was immediately changed, now implementing a more scientific approach, every drill designed till the very last detail. The team's morale skyrocketed. It seemed he was capable of motivating them beyond what anyone else could imagine, and on the pitch, you could see it. The team was an orchestra who never missed a note. Despite their grace on the pitch, every player had a bit something else. In Portugal, we call it raça, that grit, that willingness to die for a tackle, to collapse on the pitch from exhaustion. If that means getting in one last counter-attack, they would do it all for Mourinho. He was more than a coach. He was their prophet. But above
Damn.
all, what truly cemented all of this was his approach to the transfer market. Mourinho kept only a few of the team's players that he deemed to have some potential: Costinha, Bahia, Deco, and Ricardo Carvalho, and began a revolution,
Carvalho.
offloading the rest, and instead of signing the best, most expensive players he could, taking the knowledge he had acquired at Leiria about the league's hidden talents and signing those forgotten players we knew were underrated and desperate to pay Mourinho back for the chance they had been given.
Legend,
Said it
bro.
himself, when asked about Derlei specifically, I promised him at Leiria, wherever I go, he'll come along. He gave it all for himself, the fans, his family, but above all, he gave it all for me. With Porto struggling to find the cash they needed, Mourinho opted to sell defensive powerhouse Jorge Andrade to Deportivo for 13 million euros, as well as Carlos Paredes, a former wonder kid who was the youngest captain in the history of Olympia, for 4.8 million, and finally loaning Hugo Ibarra back to Boca for 400k. Then, with this money, Mourinho brought Nuno Espírito Santo from Deportivo de La Coruña for 3 million euros, stole Jankauskas, who have been in great form during his loan at Benfica, paying Real Sociedad 2.4 million for him, and then raided all Portuguese small teams, taking Marco Ferreira and Paulo Ferreira from Setúbal, 3.1 million, César Peixoto from Belenenses, 1 million, as well as Derlei, Thiago and Nuno Valente from Leiria, 1.2 million. Alongside all of this, Mourinho also pulled off some savvy free transfers, getting Maniche from Benfica as he had been ostracized by the club and forced to train by himself after refusing to sign with agent José Veiga, getting ex-Porto captain Jorge Costa back from Charlton after he had also been pushed out of the club by the previous manager, and getting Boa Vista captain Pedro Emanuel on a free, despite the fact he had just recently taken them to a mind-blowing league title. All in all, Porto came out of this with 6.8 million in profits and a team that at the time seemed like a bunch of nobodies and has-beens with no experience or chemistry. However, with Mourinho shielding them from criticism and leading them on with his undefeated charisma, ambition and confidence, they went on not only to win the league title like he had promised, but they did it while massacring the opposition, obtaining the highest points tally in history and surprising everyone by taking home the UEFA Cup, humiliating millionaire Lazio and Larsen Celtic on the way. The standout players that year were maybe $500,000 signing Derlei, who scored an astonishing 12 goals in the UEFA Cup, being its top scorer, and Deco was the top assist provider in that same competition, despite having played in the Portuguese second tier just a few years before. However, every player in that team had a purpose, even those in the bench. It seemed almost like a perfect utopia, and it would only get better. In his second full season at the club, Mourinho went a step beyond all that he had done so far. With everyone convinced they had already outdone all that was even deemed as possible, Mourinho was convinced they could go even further. So with all the players looking to take advantage of the team's momentum and move to a bigger club, Mourinho sat them all down and asked them to believe in him and say that they could win the Champions League. And so, they complied, as Mourinho would be quoted saying, "Sometimes the best investment is to keep your own players." Regardless, in order to make some money, Mourinho allowed Postiga to leave to Tottenham for 9 million euros and Capucho to Rangers for 1. However, he still maintained his approach and brought Maciel from Leiria for 1.5 million, Pedro Mendes for an undetermined amount, and Bozinho from Boa Vista for only 1 million, while taking on a gamble on Carlos Alberto, signing what looked like the next Ronaldinho for 2.5 million. But above all, he signed Benny McCarthy back from Celta de Vigo, despite his refusal to stay at Porto 2 years earlier at the end of his loan. With the squad now fully assembled, Mourinho had now completed what to this day he refers to as his masterpiece. From the first 11 he fielded on his debut at Porto, only Bahia was left. In front of him, Jorge Costa and Ricardo Carvalho were solid as a rock, tremendous at ball recovery and capable of providing support in transition. Alongside them, Nuno Valente and Paulo Ferreira were the prototypes of the modern fullback, providing the width demanded by his diamond formation and covering the entirety of the flank. Costinha in the middle, an anchor, a titan, a squid with 8 arms and 8 legs, with many names. At nearly 30 years of age, he had reached the peak of his game. In front of him, Pedro Mendes connected him to the two creative geniuses that were Deco and Maniche, who then supplied Derlei, who quite simply was 10 years ahead of his time, and Benny McCarthy, the perfect poacher. While at any moment the likes of Carlos Alberto and always injured Alenishev could come in at any time and disrupt the match. Overall, they were incredibly utilitarian, ruthless in transition, incredibly composed, and capable of converting any sort of scenario into a goal. They were Mourinho's Real Madrid 10 years earlier. Getting to play and win that UEFA Cup was the perfect opportunity. If 1 year before the players had no experience, they were now as confident as Mourinho, and so they just carried on like nothing had changed. Sure, they knew they weren't the best team in the tournament anymore, but as Mourinho said, talent is not the only way to win matches. The journey started with a draw against a Partizan squad trained by Lothar Matthaus and a 3-1 defeat to Los Galácticos. Porto were tied for last place in the group after just 2 matches, yet they didn't seem bothered. Once again, Mourinho's unshakable persona seemed to keep the team together, and with that motivation by their side, following that defeat to Real, they won 34 matches without a defeat in all competitions. The following game came against Drogba's Marseille, and despite the big man's early goal, Maniche and Derlei combined for another 2 before Alenichev made it 3 and closed out the match. Then, in the second game versus Marseille, it would also be Alenichev who would score the result with a single goal, before McCarthy pulled off a brace versus Partizan, allowing Porto to creep up to the second place in the table, before facing Real once more, the real and final test. Against all expectations, following that 3-1 home defeat, Porto arrived at Santiago Bernabeu brimming with confidence, and even despite conceding just 8 minutes
I remember
into the match,
Deco, man. He
Derlei
was
ended up
a
getting the
freaking.
draw.
He was a
However,
legend,
it was
bro.
right then
He
and
was
there
so
that
good,
Porto
man.
faced their biggest upset of the season. Derlei had ruptured his ACL. The team's doctors couldn't even be sure that he would be back before the end of the season. This made Mourinho sound the red alert and led him to anticipate Carlos Alberto's arrival half a year. He knew it would be tough to get him ready for Europe that fast, but in his own
He was
words,
quick, that guy.
he was completely shameless, and the magic that came with that could help the team. With the group stage over, Porto progressed in second place, 3 points below Real, which meant they were bound to face tougher opposition in the knockouts, and so it was. Manchester United would be their first adversary.
Oh.
In one of the first ever matches played in the brand new Estádio do Dragão, everyone expected Sir Alex to teach Mourinho a thing or two, but even though Porto did go down early, McCarthy pulled off a brace with 2 incredibly relentless strikes and gave them the win against all odds. Still, Mourinho knew he hadn't won yet, and just as he had predicted in the press conference, at Old Trafford, Porto once again went behind early, meaning if the game was to end like that, they would be out on away goals. On the 75th minute, holding on to wherever hope there was left, Mourinho subbed in Ricardo Fernandes, a free kick specialist. And I kid you not, on the 90th minute, Porto gets the perfect free kick. Ricardo prepares to take it, and Benny McCarthy nudges him to the side and insists he should take it himself. Mourinho goes crazy on the sideline, and then, bam, it goes over the wall. Tim Howard gets a hand on it, and Costinha smacks it in on the rebound. Porto were through to the quarters. Mourinho had taken down Sir Alex in Fergie time. With the underdogs all going in full force, Porto then met Lyon, and don't for a second think that was weak opposition. They had Juninho, Edmilson, Malouda, Essia,
Juninho.
I mean,
A
they
free
had
kick
won the league
legend.
in 7 consecutive seasons and had humiliated Bayern Munich in the group stage. Regardless, Porto were in total control the whole time, winning the first leg 2-0 and drawing the second at 2 goals each, with Maniche being the hero.
Maniche.
It was in the semi-finals against Deportivo that things got serious again. They were Super Depor. They were no less than Real and Barcelona. In
What is
fact,
that?
they've been battling with
Oh,
both
whatever.
of them for the top of Spanish football, and just 4 years earlier, they had been Spanish champions. Even the great AC Milan fell 4-0 before them just weeks before the match. And it was right here that Mourinho finally seemed a bit more tense. The first match dragged all the way down to a 0-0 final result. Jorge Andrade had been sent off for Depor, but regardless, Porto now had to beat them in the away game. It looked like serious trouble, but then a light shined down at Mourinho. After 4 months, Derlei had fully recovered from his injury and would be back for the away leg. And alongside this, Mourinho noticed something interesting. Depor were known for being very physical, however they had 7 players who were 1 yellow away from not playing in the final. So, the mind game started. Throughout the whole match, the Porto players told them that 1 bad foul and they would never get to play a Champions League final. Deportivo were on their tippy toes, afraid to make a single wrong move. This anxiety got to them, and after 150 minutes of football, Mourinho could feel them breaking, and out of nowhere, they did. Penalty for Porto, and it couldn't get more poetic. Derlei was the one to score it. Mourinho subbed him off, and all of the Porto fans gave him a standing ovation. He looked up and was completely reduced to tears. he had taken them to the final once again.
Wow.
With all the other competitions wrapped up, the squad got on the plane and flew to Gelsenkirchen. There, Monaco awaited them once again. Don't let the team's current state fool you. They had Deschamps as coach, Abraham Morientes, Julie Cissé, and Dado Peugeot. They had beaten Deport 8-3 in the group stage and had already taken down Real and Chelsea on their way to the final. Still, that day it was obvious Porto had something they didn't have. All night long, Porto gave them hope only to demolish them in each counterattack. First, 19-year-old Carlos Alberto made history, opening the score sheet and becoming the youngest ever Champions League final goal scorer. And half an hour later, Deco and Alenichev both scored to settle the result down at an impressive 3-0.
Wow.
As Mourinho held the trophy, his demeanor seemed relaxed even. Finally, he was allowed to switch off his ever-confident persona and enjoy his success. When asked about it, he said, "I don't like to call this my masterpiece. It was our masterpiece." And in fact, by the time the tournament was over, besides Deco sharing his spot as the tournament's top assist provider, no other Porto player was topping any charts. Their top scorer was Benny McCarthy, and 18 players had scored more than him. It had more than obviously all been a result of a collective effort, but that collective had been designed and handcrafted by Mourinho himself.
That guy was a legend, man. He is a legend.
Over the years, only a few failed to achieve success. I guess this is that part of the movie where they tell you how every character's life turned out. So, Nuno Espírito Santo became a Porto legend and a high-profile manager. Paulo Ferreira, Ricardo Carvalho and Bozingua all moved to Chelsea for 20, 30 and 21 million respectively, and all of them went on to win the Champions League again. Carvalho was the third most expensive defender of all time and went on to become arguably the greatest Portuguese centre-back of all time.
Wow.
Beck went on to place second in the Ballon d'Or and was sold to Barcelona for 21 million plus Quaresma. Despite being 30 years old, Nuno Valente still got his dream move to the Premier League. Bahia retired at Porto. He is also considered by many the greatest Portuguese goalkeeper of all time. He is now en route to become the next Porto president. Pedro Manuel took over as captain once Bahia left and also retired at Porto. Speaking of captains, Jorge Costa retired 2 years later in Belgium, and despite forfeiting his armband to Bahia in order to avoid conflict after his return, he is widely considered the greatest captain in the history of the club. Manish completely turned his career around, moved to Moscow for 16 million euros, and went on to play for Chelsea, Atletico and Inter. Costinha also experienced a revival despite being 30 and joined Manish at Dinamo and Atletico. On the other hand, both Derlei, Alenichev and Benny McCarthy struggled massively with injuries and saw their careers stall after the tournament.
Hey,
Carlos
happens,
Alberto
man, it
moved back to
happens.
Brazil for 10 million euros and never fulfilled his potential. He regrets having left the club. In total, Porto made 130 million with the sales of these players.
Damn.
No team in Europe made more money over those years.
Damn.
They did it without ever spending more than 10 million euros in a single transfer market. It was the last fairy tale in the history of football so far.
Dude, that guy, Mourinho, he was a legend, bro. What is going on over here? The guy was a legend, bro. I just, like I said, man, I really would like to meet him and be his friend, man, but I doubt that'll happen. But anyhow, yeah, man, I remember those games too, bro. I remember how, like when they played the final, I was rooting for them. For Porto, I was like, dude, I hope they win, and they won, dude. That was awesome, dude. When you're, I always find myself rooting for the underdog, you know. So that was cool, man. Mourinho, good job for you, bro. All right, everyone. This is why I love football. See you later. Please like and subscribe.